Hi guys. Okay, in the Silver Wolf series I want to talk about a new direction that I'm going in and I want to share with you. Now, one of the things that becomes kind of obvious as we get old is our bones hurt. And whenever it gets cold, whenever it gets to be winter, man, it's still beautiful to me. I still want to go and I still enjoy being out there. But quite often the just needing to get warm, you know what I'm talking about. It just stops being fun because you just hurt so bad. Well, I've been watching the last few years this trend of a hot tent idea, which ain't nothing new. Back in my rendezvous days, there was a time whenever I camped with people that had a wall tent that already had a stove in it in the winter, and that was very nice. You know, especially you'd stoke it up, get it just right, and you could sit in there in a t-shirt and a pair of shorts, and it'd be in the teens outside the tent. So it was really a great way for camping, but you had to understand the concept of it. This isn't central heat and air at home. And a lot of you young people didn't come up with a wood stove in the house or with a fireplace to heat the house. Now, I was sort of in that bunch that had to use very limited heat sources to heat a house. And a lot of my family were still poor and still used just a fireplace to heat the house, or a wood stove, or you know an actual kitchen stove was the heat source that heated up the house. You know, well, wood stoves have to be run a certain way. One, you want stove wood, and what that is English is you want your wood a certain size, a certain diameter for consistency. So we would bust up larger firewood, cordwood, to be stove wood, so it would fit in the firebox, be easy to put in, and you knew about how much wood would burn about how long in usual given situation. See, so it's very much like a timer, etc. And how to run a dampener and how to run control there to draw out the burn time. It's really a lost science in many ways of how this was done. So I wanted to try that with a hot tent. And I haven't got the tent in. It will be in this Thursday. Probably the time that you're seeing this video should be the day I get it. But I already got the stove in. And so my concept is when I go up to do my winter camps that are coming up in the next 2 months, I plan on using this system of a hot tent, which will go all the way to the ground and be basically like a wall tent with my hammock in it or a cot and a wood stove. I'm going to try that out. So I got in the stove, and this is an unboxing. We're going to talk about the stove for a minute. Now, on Amazon, this was about the cheapest one. I'll just tell you straight up. I ain't going top shelf. I went with this. Is that going to bite me in the long run? I don't know, but we're going to find out. But I'm not going to, since my winter camping is only going to be 2, maybe 3 months down here in the south, it's not going to get a whole lot of use. So I didn't want to go and buy, you know, a real expensive, fancy thing. And then it, you know, if I was up in your neck of the woods where you guys are getting snow for 8 months out of the year, yeah, I'd invest in a real nice, good stove. But I didn't. And I will put in the description box, I'll show you where I got it off Amazon. Okay. There's the top plate that drops down. We used to call, I don't know what the official name was, but we called it the pot plate because that was the plate, the pot went on and you lift it out to put a big pot sitting over the hole to be more direct. A set of instructions. This may need some assembly required. Round window. Now this is the box that goes in the back where the stove pipe attaches. And I can see a few little bitty air holes around. I intend on getting some of that fire caulking and caulking this up. For those of you that don't know, they actually make a caulking for fireplaces. And I'll get it and fill in these little slits and things. Now, a wood stove cannot be truly airtight, because you got to have air coming in for the combustion to take place. They give you a pair of gloves because there's a hot knob you got to open and close the door with. And if it was truly airtight, then you'd have trouble getting it to burn. There's the main body. We're going to get a close-up here in a minute. But I'm discovering this just like you are. Now with this particular model, right here in the back is where this goes, or the stove pipe. And it's supposed to be a fairly tight friction. And it is, and it does sit in there fairly tight. It does have a positive stop. So when you put it in, it don't go in too far or whatever. And it does go in like a ½ inch or so. If I find that to be a problem, I'll have that fixed permanently in place, but we'll see. Around here in the front, it has two side handles. Sorry for the aircraft. These tables come across and they got a handle, so you can pick it up easy. They also, you scoot them in, lock in place to be warming trays. Now typically in the past, when we ran wood stoves in a rendezvous tent or whatever, these little trays out here be where you'd cook and then put something to keep it warm, like a coffee pot or something like that close to the fire, because heat coming off the side of the box is going to keep this very, very warm. Not truly hot enough to cook, but you could slow things out there. Now I've seen, I don't know about this one, but I have seen a shelf like this, and this is going to be running all day because it was snowing and it was cold, that they baked over here. And what they did was they put a small pan with a loaf of, something like blueberry muffin or whatever mix in it, set it right here, and then they turned a larger can over the top of it and set it and used it like an oven, where the heat coming up there would be a slow, consistent heat. And it might take it an hour to cook, but it was slow and it didn't burn, right? So hey, you lift up on the knob, and there's the door. It does have fire caulking around the door. Now let me get you in a little bit closer now. Look a little closer. Okay, the door does have asbestos-like fire coil in it to help seal it up around the edge. Comes with a couple of brushes just for cleaning out and etc. There's the first piece of pipe. Supposed to be stainless pipe, and it's got an ash raker and something you can reach in and move around in the firebox with. Now I have coming en route a dampener for this. And there's the little knobs that screw on to the one here for the door latch, and then one here for sliding back and forth for controlling the air. I'll go ahead and screw them in right quick. Now typically these should be something like a wire handle that's very airy, so it doesn't hold a lot of heat. This, however, appears to be just a cheap little metal knob. At least it does screw on fairly snug. At least that one did. And will help. I won't cross thread it now. There we go. Alright, now you can open up for air, close it. There's a little glass insert right there. But you can close it and lock it so it's a tight, and then you can adjust your air flow right there. 3 pieces of pipe. It has a double bottom right here. So you have the combustion chamber, and it's fairly heavy gauge. And then you got the ash right here, so that ash can drop through and air can come in from below for better combustion, which I do like. And that's what this hook is for, so you can reach up in there and help get some of the ashes out and also rake some of the stuff out of here. So it's a fire poker. Now, let us see. Got 3 different sections of pipe. They all seem to be the same. And I got a dampener coming that I'll put in here. Let's see. There's 1, 2, 3. That's only going to be about 3 foot of stack right there. I'm going to need a good deal more than that to go through a wall tent, but that's okay. I'll pick up that pipe somewhere else and add to it. And then up here in the top, this is where the fire will come out this opening right here into this top combustion chamber. And this is where the pipe seals right there before it goes out. What they're doing is doing 2 different directions. Now this drops in place to help catch and let heat out, and then you got the drop right there. Now that making it where you could lift off and put a big pot directly over the whole thing. You could also, ash is going to blow down in here, so they quite rightly made it where you can lift it up and clean it out pretty easily. And it's got an air hole right there in the center of it to let heat come straight out the top. I may plug that up, we'll see. Now also, these side arms fold down as well to make it a little bit more compact. And then it has underneath, and I'm going to wiggle out the chimney for just a second. It has underneath legs, and these legs fold out and lock into position like this. To make it taller and more stable, so you don't have to worry about setting grass on fire down here. Now, this air hole right here, this little hole in this, that's where the heat's going to be coming straight for it, so I'm probably going to get some smoke leaking out around that. So I'm probably going to plug that up. Just a nut and a washer will plug that up pretty easily. And this doesn't seal down tight. It does seal down fairly snug, but not truly that tight. So this is going to require a little bit of tweaking probably to this design to get it to sit in there best. They're going back. I'll put it in like that. It works good like that. Seems to seal up better too. Alright. And then of course, the stack. Now, there's a couple of nuts back here that are for the, like this, for the leg. That would also be a good idea for a place for me to run a safety wire around and hook this so it couldn't be bumped out backwards while this is functioning. But lift up, come in and apply your cordwood in there, your stove wood, and then having your drive over there. Now I'll probably slide a piece of aluminum foil down there so that my hot cinders drop into that aluminum foil, so I can just pull them out and dump them and slide the aluminum foil back in instead of having to dump it out so easy. But that, and then with a put me in a dampener right here will allow me to regulate better. Now the way you regulate and run a stove is you've got your wood in, you've got your fire going. You start out with it wide open with air flowing in. The air is going to flow in, go through the combustion chamber, come up here to the upper chamber, and then flow out the stack. By putting a dampener in here, when you turn that, it goes from being wide open like that to coming down and curtailing the exhaust going out. slowing it up. That forces more heat to be trapped in here. It can't get out quite as fast. And regulating the air intake here will also regulate how fast it burns. So once you've got it good, it's going and everything, being able to slow it up. Even if you close the door, it's loose enough that it's going to get some air. It's going to leak around some of this stuff, and that's the whole idea. It'll suck a little air in there and keep it going so it doesn't smother it. But you can also slow it down, etc., to make your wood last longer. Now, in a future video, I will set this out in the open, away from any kind of combustible in my new tent, and I will fire this thing up and give it a test run. You should always do that with a stove to find out if there's going to be problems before you put it inside of a tent. Okay? If this thing's going to get hot and it's so cheap it just warps to pieces because it's cheap made overseas stuff, I want to know it now, before I'm off on an adventure and I need this thing and suddenly it's falling apart. So that's the time to test it out. Find out. Now I know these knobs are going to be way too hot to grab. That's the reason they give you a pair of hot gloves with it, so that you can load firewood in it, etc., and be able to grab the knobs and etc., like that. Open it up, close it, etc. The door does close good and stiff. You see how that works whenever it's hot. It's too stiff. That seems to be nice and loose. These seem to be fine, and everything seems to go together. I will, of course, need to add more sections of pipe. How much pipe? Well, the one wind hot tent I've got coming is 12 feet long, and I believe, okay, if I've understood the measurements right, when it's set out width-wise, it's going to be like 8 feet across by the 12 feet long at the floor. That'll give me plenty of room to put that in. How high do I want to come up? I want to become above my ridge line. So I've got 3 feet of pipe right there. I want at least another 6 feet of pipe going up beyond that, because I want it to come well above my tent. Now this hot tent says that it has been fire retardant treated so that you can hold a flame up against it for a second. It doesn't automatically melt. That's one of the reasons it's heavier, and it holds heat better that way. Okay, we shall see. I'm not going to put a lighter up to it, but you know what I mean. It does have the fireproof, the fiberglass insert for the pipe to go through. How big is that opening compared to this? You know, I haven't seen it yet. I was in a wall tent years ago that the pipe coming up was like this. It was a 3-inch pipe, but the opening was an 8-inch hole. That the person who had this tent before had a big pipe going through it. If the hole is much bigger than that, then what I'll do is go get me an additional piece of that fiberglass. I will cut a hole that'll fit this, slide it down over it, and then on the outside of the tent where you roll the flap up, I'll hook it to be an additional to keep rain from coming in so easy, or so much heat going out the hole. Because you got to remember, this is going to be radiating heat at a 360, and then the heat's going to be going straight up here. If you got a 2-foot diameter hole over it, the bulk of the heat's just going to go straight out. But and we're going to deal with this once I get the tent. I'm going to talk to you what I learned about running a tent inside of running a stove inside of a canvas tent. You've got to put an air hole on it. You can seal it up fairly well, but underneath, let's say, just to give you a hint right now, let's say this is here, and right here is the side of the tent. The side closest to this air hole right there, underneath the side of the tent, let's say this is the edge of the tent, you put 2 sticks like that, so you got an air hole coming straight underneath this. So as this heat rises, it sucks fresh air in to feed that. That keeps it all flowing out. You keep your carbon monoxide and stuff like that to a minimum because it's constant flow out. One of the reasons that them old houses that built back in the day were not sealed up very tight, and they had fireplaces and they had wood stoves and stuff. Man, you'd get that stove going on a real cold day and you'd go up to every window and hold your hand and you felt air coming around the window. around the doors. It all pulled in cold air from the outside. That's one of the reasons them houses were so drafty. But if you sealed it up blood tight, well, then the stove didn't work worth a flip because it couldn't get air. See, air's got to flow in, got to flow out. And so a trick to it is you need a direct air source to the fireplace, a direct air source to the stove. And so having right here beside it an opening coming underneath the tent so fresh air could suck in and go immediately to this, come up in here and spread the warmth throughout the tent is great. And you keep your exhaust going out the top so as the combustion happens, it flows up, flows and goes out, and all the bad gases are going out and just the heat is staying. With our modern houses, as well as they're sealed up, it can be a problem today because the fire can die down and you don't have a good draft going up and you don't have a dampener on it. And the smoke starts coming in rather than going up the chimney. That's the reason I'm going to plug up that hole up there. I don't want it to even start. I want that top to be sealed up where it sticks, and therefore the heat comes through but the smoke goes out. We'll deal more with this a little later on. But for you red wolves like me that's been thinking about wanting to go out there winter camping, but dang it, just the cold gets me, it hurts me, I got to be able to get warm. At least I can endure it, I can grit my teeth through most of it. But when I'm getting ready to go to bed, you know, and you got to get in there and change into your clothes, I don't want to be changing in 18-degree weather into ice cold clothes. Having a hot tent where you can go in there and fire it up, give it a few minutes and let it warm up, nice and toasty, where you can change your clothes, get set up, and then go to bed. You got enough sleeping bag stuff, you're going to stay warm once you get in bed. But in the morning, when I get up, when I wake up, being able to just roll over and have it ready where I open the door and this thing will be out, stoke it up right quick, fire it up, get back in that warm bed and wait for the tent to warm up so I can get up and get dressed, etc. Sit there and put my coffee pot on top while I'm getting back in my bed and warming up. And then once the tent gets warm, my coffee's warm, then I get up, I'll get dressed, drink my coffee, get my core temperature up, then I'll go out and face the day. That's the object game. I know, smoothing it. Thank you for watching, guys. Please put any questions or comments down below, and I'll be happy to answer them as fast as I can. Till next time, guys, I'm Blackie wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.